Cheers, guys. Epyx911, welcome to the Tuesday, June 27th, 2017 edition of VR News. Let's jump into the first story. This has to do with a game that launched today from one of Vive's first-party developers, Fantahorn Studio. The game is called Front Defense, and it releases today via VivePort, July 7th for Steam. And it is a first-person arcade-style shooter, but takes place in World War II. And World War II, just because of my unique family situation, always a touchy subject, probably why I was so damn interested in it growing up. So yeah, pretty much those initial Call of Duty, the World War II campaigns, love them. Basically love any game that has to do with World War II, strategic level, first person, etc. Definitely one I'm interested in, and if I do play it, we'll do a quick look on it. Next up, The Void, the people behind the Ghostbusters experience in Times Square, New York City. They've also opened in Dubai and another location, Toronto location in Canada here, which is Canada's most populated city, is their fourth worldwide. And Toronto, I think, is also fourth in population in terms of cities in North America. So very interesting. It'll be neat to see if they add more to it than just the Ghostbusters experience. What makes it even more interesting for me, though, is the agreement they've gone into is with Cineplex. Now, Cineplex Odeon here in Canada also hosts IMAX. And of course, we know IMAX has their own virtual reality solutions. So it's going to be neat to see if they end up coming to some kind of territorial agreement, because as far as I know, IMAX VR does have its eye set on the Canadian market at some point. So that'll be interesting to see. It opens, like I said, in Toronto, in the new Toronto Centre. Next news story, Apple pulling off basically a stealth acquisition. Now, pretty much nothing that Apple does really shocks me anymore, and I think that's probably the same with most of you. What I do find interesting about this is that I've actually talked about SMI, the company they supposedly or allegedly acquired sometime, this according to Mac Rumors, between May 2nd and yesterday. So somewhere in that range, SMI was acquired by Apple. And of course, talked about them just yesterday. That was the most recent time in terms of that protocol or concussion diagnostic and treatment software. So be interesting to see what they want out of this acquisition. And it also explains why their website was taken down. Now, if they've acquired them strictly for the intellectual property and then they're going to shutter them down, that's one thing. I don't think that's the scenario here. I think they were acquired for ongoing expertise rather than that. If that's the case, and I really think it is, they're probably just rebranding the software under their banner, or the website rather. And next up, 2 games being announced for the Windows mixed reality, and so I'm just going to call it VR, for Windows virtual reality headsets. These, of course, the headsets that Microsoft and their partners are launching this year. So while it's been very quiet VR-wise on the Xbox front, they do at least appear to be moving forward, at a decent pace. Although pretty frightening, this is only 2 game announcements with the first launches coming in the fall. So hopefully there's a slew more down the pipe. The ones talked about today, Fusion Wars, which is a Battlezone tank combat style game. And the second, Melody VR, not really a game, more an experience, which allows you to view 360-degree live music experiences. So concerts, etc. Next up, and I phrased this headline as a question. The original article just kind of phrases it as a statement, but I've got it as Russian activist arrested for using VR in public, ? The reason I say question mark is we don't know. Now, allegedly, she was arrested for that. So the background on this is she is an activist that has been an activist for the better part of the last decade in Russia. She was part of that Pussy Riot incident, and this time she's kind of advocating on behalf of patients that are in psychiatric institutions in Russia that, according to her, don't have a voice. The idea here is that she shows those patients what everyday life in Moscow is like. The problem is she's using a Gear VR, and it's essentially like a blindfold, unless she's watching stuff she's already taken. In other words, she's at the location where her and her crew have already filmed stuff. But anyways, she was hauled in. A Facebook statement later said that the police told her, this is according to her again, that she was arrested because virtual reality is illegal. It's all reality here, or real reality here in Moscow. According to the police officer, well, according to her is what the police officer said. So where's the truth? Well, we're not sure. Although, you know what? It's not uncommon for the Russian police to arrest gatherings, right? There's a lot of gatherings that are illegal in Russia at the moment. So we'll see if anything more comes out of that. All right, then we've got Tokyo-based Vaqso designing an odor-emitting attachment for VR headsets. And I chuckle only because the whole thing started off as a joke with that South Park one, and it comes up in discussion every once in a while. Personally, I think the emphasis should be on visuals and sound and touch before we even entertain smell, right? That doesn't mean I don't think it's good to research stuff in there, but I'm just not so sure how practical it actually is right now. So this device, this Vaqso device, able to equip itself with up to 3 smells and a small fan on board. So you basically put this thing on the bottom of your HMD, blows it up through the bottom, and my assumption is you then smell that and get your odor. So lots of issues with that attachment. I mean, we could talk an hour at least about the issues there. I like the technology research being done. I just don't think it's practical at this point in time. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on that. All right, guys, that is it for the news on this Tuesday. The VR arcade video almost done, and then some quick looks planned for this week. Guys, as always, cheers.